My name is Cody. I'm 24 years old and I have a quite of a good story that happened to me 8 years ago when I was 17 years old. But this happened to multiple different people around the world around the 2016 as many people still remember as the crazy clown pandemic. Yeah, that time was crazy. I remember this actually happening around the early stages of these clown sightings. And I remember that I saw on the news that people have been seeing these clowns around into different part of the country and even other part of the world. Some was wielding knives or even machetes or even axes. I heard that some people managed to begin actually attacked and even others just managed to escape in with their lives. At the time, there has not even been any clown sightings in my town. And I live in a medium-sized town in Idaho with a population of 24,000 people. I was living with my parents and my younger brother, who was at the time 15, and my younger sister, who was at the time 13. At the time, I was just willing, hoping that this clown sightings didn't even happen in my town. I mean, it would have been frightening if there were any stories, but at the time, like I said, this would happen to me in the early stages of these clown sightings. And at the time, I hadn't even heard of any clown sightings in my town or any other counties nearby. So I wasn't even sure if this gonna happen here or not. But at the time when it happened, I was on my way home from being a visit a friend. This was around in the late afternoon, I believe around 4, 5 p.m. or something like that. And since my friend didn't even live that far, so I didn't need just a bike. It took me maybe just about 15 to 20 minutes walk or so. I was happy to walk though. It was a nice day. But and it was about halfway from all my home, I heard this laughter. Like it really surprised me. So when I turned around, I saw a clown. Like an actual clown. But at the time, it didn't even bother me, or it didn't even it didn't hit me. It just could have been one of those clown sightings. I thought maybe there was a clown that was someone had hired as to be in for a birthday party or something. Because when I turned around, he didn't look at me or just laughing, just like a normal, cheerful laughter. After I turned around and continued walking, after about maybe just a few more feet, the laughter stopped. I was like, okay, maybe he found his destination. So I didn't mind it. So when I get home, I found out I was home alone. My parents were at work. I believe my younger brother and sister was out with some friends at the time, so I wasn't much bothered that. I mean, I'm used to be home alone for a few hours or maybe a day since I was 17. And when I get home, I just grabbed something to eat and just went to my room, played some games, and I don't even remember to this day what games I played, but I played for about maybe for a while since I looked at the clock was around almost 6 p.m., so maybe an hour or so. And and since my parents hadn't even come home yet, or even my siblings, so I decided I had to play enough of my game, so I wanted to just go to my living room and just watch some TV. I just watched on some TV, but then suddenly I heard laughter. I thought maybe it was my neighbors laughing, but it wasn't. Or at least I thought at first, but the laughter continued, and at some point it seemed to get a bit louder and louder, and it continued at the same volume of the laughter. At first, I didn't ignore it, but as it persisted, I was like, screw this. I had to tell my neighbor to just calm down or at least lower down the laughter since it was a little bit dark outside at the time, so I couldn't see. So I went to the front door, opened it, looked out. I would look at both to my right and left just to see if I could see my neighbors, or at least one of my neighbors at either side, laughing. But no one was even out there. I even looked across the street on the neighbor, my other neighbor across the street. They weren't even at home. So my complete street was, well, a void of people. I was like, where is laughter coming from? But it seems the laughter was close. And I was about to look around again, and then it happened. A clown stepped out from tall bushes from the neighbors across the street. Like, when I looked at it, and it hit me. It was the same freaking clown that I saw earlier. And I was like, it had been at least a few hours now since this when I saw the clown last time. So I was like, what in the world is this clown doing here? I mean, there was no one from having a party or anywhere, since most of my neighbors was even home. So I was like, as I was about to ask this clown what he wanted, because now he started laughing like a complete maniac. And I saw that he pulled out something from his back and wielding it in the front of one of his hands. It was a knife. And don't think like the small kitchen knife. This was a butcher knife or something. I was like, uh-oh, this is not good. As I was just staring at the clown, he was wielding the knife back and forward and laughing like a complete maniac. We locked eyes with each other and he's still laughing like a complete maniac. He didn't say any particular words at all. He was just laughing and laughing and screaming like some random noises. And then he suddenly rushed towards me, and I just continued to look and I'm horrified. But then I snapped out of it, and he was about maybe just 5 or 4 feet away from me. I managed to close the door and lock it. And then I heard he was at the front door, banging with one hand, screaming like a complete maniac, and suddenly I heard him banging the door with the knife like over and over, and then it stopped. And then suddenly, after just only a few seconds, I heard him slamming himself against the door, screaming, letting in, like, let me in, let me in. I want to have some fun with you before I kill you, he screamed, while laughing like a complete maniac. He slammed himself against the door. I was very petrified at the time. I didn't know what to do. And I had to mention one small detail. I didn't even have my own cell phone at the time. Well, I did manage to get one a bit later on, but this was just before then. And I was like, who that should call? And since my neighbors, if one of my neighbors would have been home, they probably would have came out and told that this complete idiot or maniac to just leave. So, at the time, we still had a landline, which or a home phone, good thing too. So I immediately ran in the kitchen. I also locked the back door just in case if he would even turn around the house. I called for my parents' number. Unfortunately, my mom didn't answer, but my dad answered and he was at work and he couldn't get out. But I told him this complete maniac, and I even held up the phone out so that he could hear this complete maniac, and he believed me. Even if I did mention it, because even he has seen this complete insanity of the sightings around the world, and even he was terrified of this. So he immediately told me to just hang up and call for 911, which I did. The police, like the operator, asked me what my emergency was, and I said, I have this complete idiot, complete maniac outside my front door, dressed as a clown, wielding a butcher knife, and he's slamming and the operator could actually hearing me clearly, but also hearing my voice being trembling of my fear, and also been hearing it from a distance that loud the maniac were. But suddenly, it was complete silent. It's like he stopped. Operator asked me if I could see, and I looked out at from the kitchen, and I don't kid you, I stood eye to eye with the clown at the front at the window, the one of the big living room windows by the front door. He literally made me the biggest, creepiest smile I ever had seen. It was terrifying. And then he just said, open up. I'm gonna kill you slowly. And he made his finger like across the throat as a way to do it. But I didn't say a single word, but he could smell smiling. But when he didn't see it get a response from me, he get this evil frown, and he used his hand, or at least the butcher knife, smashing, at least bang on the window. It wouldn't even take long before he could smash through it and just crawl in. I told this to the operator, and she told me that the police will be there in a few minutes. And she told me to arm myself, wait, if needed. I was like, okay. So I grabbed the biggest kitchen knife I had, but unfortunately, my parents didn't even have any other, you know, protection arms like any shotguns or any rifles or anything like it. If I did, I'd probably have pointed at the window and told the guy like, "Back off! I'm armed." But well, it just it it didn't cross my mind. But anyways, as I was grabbing the knife, I heard it. The window smashed, and I was like, I told this to the operator, like, I just smashed the window, and I was like, I can't stay here. I hang up the phone and grabbed the knife and just went somewhere to hide. I literally hid under beneath um, the sink and closed the door quietly. And even though I was a bit big guy at the time, I was around nearly 6 feet tall, so it was a bit cramped in there. It was a bit tight space, but it was either that or open the front back door and run. But I managed to hide and was quiet, and I actually heard him crawl in the window from the window, walked around, trashing in the living room, smashing things, and screaming. When he found me, I am gonna be killed, and he's gonna have some fun with that. And he told me I'm not his first and won't be the last surprise kill at all. I was hiding there holding the knife so tightly I could almost feel my knuckles turning white of the fear. But as he was in the kitchen, thrashing around, I heard the most happiest sound in my life. The police car. And the guy heard it too, but he didn't even somehow care about it. So he smashed around in the living room, or is in the kitchen as well now, and I heard the front door being kicked in, but the guy seems to even bother by it. He continued as if nothing happened. He was screaming that when he found me, he's gonna kill me and make sure that no one finds me ever again. And the police rushed into the kitchen, wielding their weapons and telling him to drop down the butcher knife and surrendered, basically. But he didn't even listen. He didn't even turn around. He didn't even face them. But they fired. One of the officers fired something, but I wish later to find out it was a taser. He didn't even drop the knife or anything. He continued to trash around, so that another officer had to tase him a second time. That one seems to make it effective in him, since I heard he dropped the knife and fell on his knees, and one of the officers managed to wrestle with him and put on a handcuff. And after he was brought back out by two other officers, apparently 3 officers were required to bring him out. Another officer was in kitchen and asking if I was still there. I said yes, and I opened the sink door slowly, and he saw me that I was holding a knife, and I said I was only using it if he would find me, and I dropped it, and the officer let me out. And as I was getting the statement, my dad showed up. He was horrified, but when he saw the police, he was at least relieved that I was safe. And the police told me that this guy apparently had been doing this to at least multiple houses in this area for a while now during these clown sightings. And I asked the police officer if this was the first case, or at least the first on the few cases that has actually happened, because I told him I hadn't even heard of any like this in round. He told me that most people was afraid that they didn't even report this to the police. But I was smart enough to do this. So now this guy well being behind bars. And when my mom and my brother and sister came home, they found the living room so still trash as me and my dad was were working on it, and they saw the front window was completely broken. They were horrified we had a break-in. When I told them what happened, my sister started crying like she was like if she had lost something, or my mom started crying, but she gave me a big hug and said I was brave enough to even to defend myself if needed. After this, my dad had some cameras installed and floodlights, and of course a deadbolt on on the door, and he even required a shotgun as a protection. Of course, he had to get a license for all that, and he even taught me, my brother, and my sister, and even my mom how to use it, how to load it and use it. Even though my mom was at first hesitating to even allowing to have a shotgun in the house, but it would never been loaded at the time. We had to load it ourselves, which my mom was okay with otherwise, because if something would happen, and yeah, let's say I would not been happy if that gun have got off or some by accident. But anyways, only about a few days later, the police came back to us and informed us the reason why the guy never seems to be bothered. He was high on, I assume it was meth or cocaine or maybe both. Apparently, this guy was very much have a long list of crimes in his past, like mostly burglary, assault, or at least attempted murder. I was like, attempted murder? Well, I could have been his latest victim. But I asked the police officer, just since he did mention that this guy had doing this type of attacks of other homes in area before recently as a clown. I asked him if there has been any other attempt of murder or even one has been actually attacked by him. But he told me no. Luckily though, they weren't any. Good thing too. But yeah, since this guy had this long list of crimes, and this one additionally and others in the area, well, let's say he ended up being behind bars for a long time. I still believe that he's still behind bars even to this day. So yeah, and I think good too that he's still out, he's still there, because I was horrified. Even when I went back to school, people had found out I was one of the targets, and I was kind of like a celebrity in school for a little bit, even though I didn't even like that at all. I mean, I didn't mind being appreciated that I survived this crazy lunatic, but I did give some advices to my friends and the people at school how to protect themselves if something would happen to them. And you may wonder, did I even have any nightmares of this? Oh yes, oh yeah. I had nightmares of this for months, even way after this clown pandemic was over. Most of the nightmares is that I managed to hide, escape, but a few of those nightmares, he actually managed to grab me, kill me, bury me somewhere alive, or in a 6 feet deep hole somewhere. It was the horrifying nightmares. I mean, even though my sister wasn't actually happened to her, but she told me a few times afterwards, even she had nightmares that someone dressed as a clown killed her and buried her somewhere. But I'm just glad she wasn't home alone, or my brother, or even both of them, because if that had happened, the outcome would have been much different. And that is something that neither me or my parents and anyone to want to think of. So yeah, I'm just glad that this supposed so-called clown pandemic didn't last for a long period in 2016, and it really happened when it was well over, people could move on and continue to live their lives as normal. But I will tell you, I know that for certain that even when this pandemic was going on, the clown studies around the world, people was on high alert every single day. Even if you live in a suburb, don't if you live in an actual big city, or if you live in the middle of nowhere, you never know. One of those clowns could have been disappeared at the front door, the back door, or anything. So I'm just glad it just was over. I cannot have even imagined. Even though my parents had suggested that we move shortly after this pandemic was over, even though my dad suggested that shortly after this event happened to me, that we should move to more, perhaps to a bigger city, there is more stronger possibility that we don't have this encounter. But my mom was not okay with it since I was my in my during my last few years of that I was 17 and I was also soon to enter my senior year. And as my brother and sister, they already protested that they didn't want to move. I mean, I can understand it from my siblings' point of view and my own, and had to move so maybe just not that far. But what would in the case? What did that actually happen? But like you know, the clown pandemic or the clown sightings eventually faded away, and now it's just a memory that people can talk about from what happened. It was about 8 years ago, so nearly a 10-year cycle that happened. I was, like I said, when I heard about this on the news, I was surprised and wondering if this is gonna happen in my town or not. But I'm just happy it didn't happen for a long time. Apparently, this guy was one of the only clown that has never been seen in our town. So, yeah. To the guy who is still in prison by this cause, you can stay there for the rest of your life if I care. I don't want to meet you, and I'm not also happy that other people you attacked or even terrified did survive all that as well. And I was wondering, even if it was intention to kill me, when I asked that to the police officer when he came back a few days after the attack, he said it's a very likely chance that he would have killed me. But I'm glad that didn't happen. Just mentioned it. So yeah, so to this crazy clown guy, let us never meet ever again. Thank you. And for everyone who's been listening to this story, thank you. Once again, to everyone, have a good time and please, let's hope that this clown pandemic doesn't happen ever, ever again. Thank you.